Chapter 5, Bhagavad Gita. We start off with a little background. Hadi sarvasya vishitam. Hadi sarvasya vishitam. That's not to be found in the 5th chapter. You'll find it in the 13th chapter. He is present in every heart, already present. And then in the 15th chapter also we're told that the Lord himself takes the form of the jiva, soul of every being. So he being present, what effort should there be to bring him in? There's no effort required. They're already there. What's in the way? What we call ignorance. So the whole topic of spirituality is oriented around removing ignorance. Just like a cloud is in front of the sun and moves off. What is ignorance? Ignorance is technically not knowing this fact, that the Lord himself has come as the jiva of every being. They're technically called ignorance. It manifests itself in a self-identity that says, I do and I get. So every time I think I do, I think I deserve something and I need it. So that position is a bit like, there was a person, rich man, who had some jewelry, and he asked his servant, please store it somewhere. So the servant found a rusty box. Just put the jewelry in there. And the master looked at it and said, no, such beautiful jewelry requires a gold box. Get me a gold box. You got a gold box. Naturally, a gold box requires a gold lock. So if a thief is coming along, there's no need to find out where are the jewels. You just see the gold box and take it. So we make a big fuss about everything, even though something precious is inside everything. The outside is relatively unimportant. We give it supreme importance. You give it gold lock, gold box, all the rest of it. Make a big advert of it. But what happens then? The thief comes. What is the thief? Lack of discrimination, ignorance and so on, and takes away our discernment. Discernment about what our true nature is. So, in this chapter we find, 15th and 16th stanzas, we find reference to this knowledge shining by ignorance being enveloped, and mortals are thereby deluded. Then there are some other important things in this 5th chapter, but the main thing is it's called Sannyasa Yoga. And Sannyasa, renunciation, is deemed so important that 3 chapters are dedicated to it. We've gone through the 4th chapter already. The 4th chapter is renouncing all actions in a fire of knowledge. We went through that. Then the 5th chapter elevates to a much, much higher status. We deal with some very, very subtle ideas. Doing nothing and yet accomplishing everything. That's the one side. The other side is accomplishing everything but doing nothing. It sounds the same. It just sounds like the first thing reversed. But they register starting points. I can register a starting point that says, I am the Lord of the universe, I am the immortal self, I stand here poised, all actions are happening around me, and because of that all-penetrating attitude, all things get done well. I can be a world mover from it. This is one approach. The other approach is accomplishing and doing everything. This is the attitude of karma yoga. One is karma sannyas, the other one is karma yoga. Karma yoga says, I accomplish everything, but in the midst of accomplishing everything, I do nothing. The only thing I register is nitya yoga, that means obligatory actions. What are those obligatory actions? Bathing, eating, sleeping, praying, all these are obligatory actions. All the rest, karma yogi has learned, I have nothing to do. Why? Because I register that this is an instrument. So look at one of the most beautiful karma yogis we find in Western society, in Christianity, St. Francis of Assisi, with a beautiful prayer. Lord, make me an instrument of your peace. Where there's hatred, let me sow love, very popular prayer. So what am I? Just an instrument. Like a sword. A sword is made from metal. It doesn't care whether it hits on a rough spot or a smooth spot. It's just happy to be an instrument in God's hands. So these two approaches are very subtle. And yet we've dealt with it before. So the whole of the second chapter, by the end of the second chapter, you have known everything there is to know in the Bhagavad Gita. So why? What's the need then to go on another 16 chapters? The reason is because these issues are very subtle. Not intellectually subtle, not subtle from difficulty to grasp with thought, processes and study. That's not it. That's very easy. But what is very difficult is the practical understanding of it in daily life. We suffer from ignorance. We can call it self-forgetfulness. That means it's not a permanent self-forgetfulness. Sometimes we get an inspiration, a kind of remembrance, and then self-forgetfulness, and then remembrance. So progress is never linear. Progress will always be down and up and down and up. As long as the general trend is in the right direction, it's okay. So these are the issues that face Arjuna. He's asking again, I don't understand. In the 4th chapter, you told me, you praised renunciation of action. You said, don't act. Then you say, action is the highest thing. Tell me conclusively, which of these two? You're confusing me. You can't have this and that, two opposite sides, and be consistent in what you say. So, 5th chapter begins like this. Arjuna uvacha samnyasam karmanam krishna purna yogam cha samstachasti yachcheya etaya ekam tanme bruhi sunishitam. So, renunciation of action, sannyasam. You recommend, you commend, you did it in the 4th chapter, and again it's performance. That's the opposite, seemingly. Of the two, which one is the better? Tell me that conclusively. See, verses 18, 19, 21, 24, 32, 33, 37, 41, all in the 4th chapter, have dealt with this issue. In that, Lord advocated renunciation of action. But the last verse of that chapter, he recommends the performance of action. That's why his question is there. So then the second stanza goes like this. Sri Bhagavan Uvacha, the Lord said, Samnyasa karma yogascha nisraya sakara upao tayostu karma samnyasa karma yogo vishishyate. Vishishyate, it's superior. What's superior? Renunciation and performance of action, they both lead to freedom. Freedom from what? Freedom from bondage of I am the doer, I am the receiver. That's all binding. performance of action is superior to renunciation of action. So he says renunciation and performance of action, they both lead to freedom, they're equal. If they're equal, why would he recommend something superior? He's recommending something superior because he's saying action is superior to renunciation of action because we cannot keep quiet for a moment. Even doing nothing, even if you take the language of it, you know, what are you doing? Sitting. Sitting is an activity. It's not doing nothing. And even if you go off and say, yeah, I'll do nothing, go off into a cave, you take yourself and your baggage with you. Even if you sit in a cave with a loincloth, still what will happen is you take your psychological, habitual experience with you. As soon as you sit down, the mind will start racing. The mind is the problem. When you start sitting down and you say, oh, I'm very cold. Or, oh, I didn't know there were rats here. Oh, the mosquitoes are very bad. Even though we may paint an ideal picture, I think I'll be okay. Why? How? If you sit on a desert island, everything is beautiful, the sky is always blue, the sea is always magnificent emerald color, I have lots of things to eat, plenty of fish in the sea, lots of fruits, lots of coconuts. When you get there, you find lots of sandflies. That's the problem. And then you sit down, I get it, but this is hell. Then you sit and say, this is beautiful. All ideals beautiful. In the early morning, here's the sunrise, how beautiful it is. I think of God. I wonder what's happened on Wall Street. I wonder how the floods are in New York. You like that. All these thoughts keep coming. So unless you're able to control the way the mind is, unless you understand the mind as an instrument, you need the mind's cooperation. You cannot work without the mind's cooperation. So all of these methods are to do with purification and training the mind. Why does he put one action of the other, action of a renunciation of action? It's because he's looking at it from the point of view of the devotee, looking at it from the point of the sadhaka, not looking at it from the point of the perfected entity. Perfecting entity will choose the other side. Very difficult. But this is much easier. The whole thing is elaborated in the 12th chapter. 12th chapter is asked, which is the better way? Again it's asked, is it the way of the impersonal, the imperishable, and so on and so forth, all of that, that way, the way of jnana, or is it the way of devotion? Here devotion substitutes for action. Action also is action in a devotee way. Prayer is action. Puja is action. Worship is action. He says there again, we can do either, but the way of love, the way of action in this case, is better. Why better? It's easier, much easier. Why would we take the difficult route? Both are valid. Like if you want to climb a mountain, you can take a plane and go there direct. But if you take the path of karma yoga, what will happen is you'll experience all the flora and fauna on the way, all the adventures, good and bad, but a wealth of experience will be there. Human experience and spiritual experience will be there. And then the opportunity for service, taking all the energy normally distributed toward other things, self-centered ends. You can take all that energy and use the instrumentality of the senses and the mind in a useful way for the service of others. Love of God. So that's the difference. That's why it seemed to be superior. But then, will that give me peace? Because all action inherently gives me disturbance. All action, we are told, is binding. That's the difficulty. See, the inexperienced player at a game of dice, I'm quoting here Srila Krishna, wants somehow to score a victory, and he is intent on it. But an adept in it takes to the display of his talents first, and attends to the gain next. Sadhakas who want to escape from the turmoils of the world are second to those who serve the world, but are not bound by it. It's much better to serve the world than remain detached to the kind of egoism in that also. Let me get salvation. For whom? For me. But then once you get it, To get that, you have to overcome that for me. Once you've got it, what do you do? Spontaneously, you work for the welfare of all beings. This also is told in this chapter. So you can't get away from it. The very great difficulty, I mentioned it previously, in misunderstanding the whole subject of karma. Karma in terms of the effects. So if somebody is in a poor condition, you say, leave him be. Why? This is karma. He has to work it out. That excuse has now been with us for a long time. We have to learn, actually from Western countries about it. But in India, you see they have to still learn that lesson that is contained here in their own Bhagavad Gita. You don't leave a person, you work for the welfare of all beings. The path of service, path of karma yoga, the path of service. Not the path of detached disdain. I'll work out my own karma. I look after myself. Yeah, that's okay. They have to do the same. It's their business. I won't interfere. Everywhere you'll find it. In big cities you'll find it. I was in London, as you know, fairly recently. And there are so many people, very impersonal. Some people like it. So you'll find that if somebody has a difficulty by the side of the road, people will pretend they'll look. You know, the vision is very broad. We have beautiful eyes that scan, have the scanning ability. We're told that the female of the species can actually scan in a broader way than the man. So they have a more peripheral vision, so we're told. By Desmond Morris and all these other biologists and anthropologists. So scanning, we scan, oh there's a problem, but our vision doesn't seem to look at it, we carry on straight past. Somebody comes, a beggar, wants to tell on you, you just brush past. Don't even look. But that's what happens. All self-interest. Now, the beauty then is playing the game. So we have to understand the philosophical background to that life itself is like a game. If it has no real fruit for me, if I'm not the agent, if I'm not the doer, then what will happen? I'll play the game. I'll play it very well. Make it a delightful game of love with Lord on the other side. Say, come on Lord, let's play the game. You made the game, I'll play it nicely with you. And play it in as efficient way and best way, skilled way as possible, like a footballer playing with skill, great skill. The best footballers, the most skilled, will show off. So they'll do a little bit of footwork here, unnecessarily. If they score a goal, they won't score it direct on. They'll face in the opposite direction and kick the ball over their head and it goes in the net. Just to show off. And the crowd acclaims so, and they say, we like that footballer. And he gets high transfer fees to another club and all the rest of it. So it's that skill. Ask that person, are you enjoying football or do you consider it as a burden? Is it a drudgery? No, I take great delight in it. But the vast majority of humans, they take their great delight in work, only because there's a fruit. Supposing you were to take enormous delight in work without the fruit, would that be better? This system says it would. So we go on to the next one then. Nyayasa nitya samnyasi yona dvesti na kamkshati yedando hi mahabhav sukham pandat pramuchyati. Sukham, very significant, easily. So, he should be known as a constant sannyasi. Because you get this idea, what is a sannyasi? Somebody who dresses in the red cloth. Somebody who goes and meditates a lot. No, that's not a sannyasi. What is a sannyasi? Sannyasi is somebody who neither hates nor desires. Free from the pairs of opposites. Almighty Aunt, he is easily set free from bondage. Easily. No difficulty about it. In the beginning, things look difficult, isn't it? Supposing you want to drive, both drive, a car that is, yeah? He does. You don't drive?
When I have a license,
you can drive.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's right. You can drive.
He can drive only.
Yeah. So, as a driver, when you began driving, how easy was it? You put it in first gear, what happened? You went into reverse because you put it in the wrong gear. And then you wondered, how can I possibly master this attention to what I'm doing with the feet? The clutch has to be attended to, the accelerator has to be attended to, brake. And I have to look in many different directions. There's a wing mirror, there's a front window, there's a side mirror, another side mirror. I have to look in all directions at the same time. At the same time, in a coordinated way, I have to steer the wheel and look out. And I have to shift gear. All these multitasks I'm not used to. I only can do one thing at a time. It's only what I've been used to. Then, once you master it, what happens? You can speak and sing and all the rest of it while you're driving. It's a thoughtless action because it's settled in the habit level. When spiritual knowledge settles on the habit level, what will happen? All the actions are being done automatic. It's on automatic mode. No more effort required. Easily done. Effortlessly. But what should be cultivated? And how does a sannyasi look? Sannyasi can be somebody living in the midst of the whole world, but not being affected by opposites. Everything in samsara comes as opposites, like an ocean. You'll get buffeted this way, and one day, another day it's calm. That's the nature of life. So we recently celebrating, and continue to celebrate, Goddess Mother, Durga, and so on and so forth. But the great expression of this is Mother Kali. How Hinduism summarizes this so beautifully. We're saying on the one side, something that is highly destructive. You find nature is highly destructive. Look at the big force that is good in America at the moment. Yeah? There's maybe 100 people dying there, and another 100 people maybe in South America, something like that. A great city like New York, confident city that only received a bashing there on the 11th of September, the same day Swami Purnananda addressed about religions. So many years later, somebody attacked on the basis of spiritual or religious fanaticism. Not spiritual, religious fanaticism. Religious fanaticism is the same as any other fanaticism. You're only using God as an excuse. Now they've got another bashing, so the news tells us. A huge, huge storm. Big city like that, feeding I don't know how many millions, but then the underground system doesn't work, food shortages, no lights, no electricity, no water, a fire destroying all kinds of things. Nature is destructive, but nature is also constructive. That's its nature. Its nature is plus and minus. Where there's a plus, there's never a plus alone. There has to be a balancing minus. So everything has its counterpart. Matter has antimatter. Quark is anti-quark. Electron has proton and neutron. All of these things are opposing forces. There is good, there is also evil. But good and evil, this is part of the play. In a play of a much more violent game than football and rugby, a person will get a broken nose and all the rest of it. Mm-hmm. That's the risk in the game. But will he say, oh, I'm afraid of broken noses, I won't play the next? No. He'll just continue to play. Why? Because he knows he has the opportunity to master the game and to be aware of all the dangers and threats around and masterfully avoid them and still continue with the game. So the game of life is to take for granted good and bad are there. You don't try and strive for all the good things. You want to try and strive against all the bad things. What is the better way? The better way is to cultivate purity in all things and let that lead to a spirit where I understand fully this good and bad deeds are all within nature. This 5th chapter will tell us this at some point. So, don't hate anybody, don't desire anything. These are the two opposites. If I desire something on the one side, if I like something on the one side, it means I hate something on the other side. If I'm drawn to something on the one side, it means I'm pulling away from fear on the other side. Every desire has its fearful counterpart. Every painful situation has its pleasurable counterpart. We're looking to look for the good things, the pleasurable things only. It's a distorted point of view. Then we get a huge disappointment. We get into despondency when the bad things hit us. That's very bad. Then we start a curious line of question. Why did God do this to me? You think God did it to you? God waiting there with a stick, waiting to poke me? No, not like that. So you'll notice, see, the beginning of the 4th chapter, who was the first person Krishna told this message to?
Vivashvana, the sun god.
The sun god, exactly. That's a beautiful way of understanding it, because why would he teach the sun god first?
He created the sun first?
Because the sun's only job is to beam.
Oh, okay.
Don't ask the sun, when will you shine? At night time? Are you sure you will shine in what? You're always shining. Even at night time, the sun still shines. Only the earth is rotated against it. The sun shines. You ask the sun, why do you shine? Why do you shine for everybody? Why don't you withhold your vitamin D to all of those people who are bad? Why do you shine on Hitler? He doesn't deserve sunshine. See, the sun can only respond, it's not my business. My business is only to shine. I shine on all alike. What you do with it, that's up to you. In that sunshine, you can read a good book, or you can read something damaging. You can do something for the benefit of humanity, or something worthwhile, something noble, or you can use that sunshine for other activities. It's entirely up to you. Don't blame an unsuspecting God for it. There's nothing to do with it. So neither hates nor desires, free from the pairs of opposites. Because it's the pairs of opposites that abide in unity. That's my comment. Right. So this subtle distinction we can further elucidate between this. We go to the 4th stanza. Samkhya Yoga. Samkhya is the name given here for jnana. Third, Bala. Bala, children. There are only children who don't understand scripture. Now, what is scripture? Scripture is that spiritual content. Recently, in an interfaith dialogue on the internet, somebody asked me a question. They said, I've forgotten what the question was. We'll move on. Anyway. Oh yes. There are people who are suffering and they don't get the advantage of spirituality. So every religion is a believer. We're discussing believer, unbeliever. Every religion is a believer, should be a believer. Every religion should believe in God. But Vedanta's position is not like that. You don't have to believe in God. So then if you say, but you must, or you take scripture and use that as the basis for your argument, that's what I was meaning. Use that for your basis of your argument, you're only operating as a child. Now, the child can't evaluate anything. A child takes for granted what comes. A child doesn't know traffic is dangerous. A child doesn't know fire is dangerous. It requires an adult to point it out to them. Or their own experience. You put your hand in the fire, you get burned. So it's immaturity that people are suffering from. What we call ignorance is just lack of growth, that's all. But we all grow. Spirituality means a growth is required. Now a growth comes from inside. We can only create the conditions for it. Nothing you can do personally about it. You can't take a flower and say, here's our instruction for today, and take it by the head. Please grow 2 inches. You won't do it. It comes from within. It knows how to take nourishments, take through the sap, select all the things it wants from the soil, distribute it nicely through the flowers, and make different products, flower, leaf, bud, and so on, all from that same sap. It knows what to absorb, knows what to reject. There's nothing you and I can do about its growth, except we can make the nourishment, may ensure that the soil can be more nourishing. We can protect it. We can put water on it, make sure it's out in the sunshine, make sure it doesn't die. All of that can be done. That's the only thing we can do. The whole thing is called spiritual life. But the actual revelation comes from inside. God being there, standing there to attention, we'll get that God easily when we remove all the obstructions to that vision. So it's only the child that does not understand scripture. A child's way of looking at scripture is, and I'll give you an example, you read the Bible. Have you read the Bible?
I haven't read the Bible, no.
Yeah. If you are suffering from insomnia, please read the Bible, because it will put you to sleep. Because if you read everything there, you see a genealogy. So you see, so-and-so begat so-and-so, then so-and-so begat so-and-so, for pages and pages of it. Because it's all mixed up. Because people take scripture to mean all these things that have nothing to do with spiritual direction and growth and truth. Anything that you can get in any other book is not scripture. So within scripture, some people's scripture you'll find history, historical account. The walls of Jericho got blasted and so on and so forth. All of this has nothing to do with your spiritual growth and life. So this is the basic difference. Here we have a difference, this is the basic difference. What we deem to be scripture is something like this, is practical. It gives you a practical direction. It doesn't tell you. It tells you who I taught and so on and so forth. There's a reason for that. But it doesn't give you any historical account. That creates tremendous controversy. Well, people interested in historical accounts will now debate how old are the Vedas, how old is the Mahabharata, did it ever take place? All of that is of interest to them. But they never kept historical accounts. They were very bad at that. The clues are contained within the texts. We're giving astronomical clues about times and dates, taking it for granted that everybody knows it. So there's a different approach. So when you take scripture, what is scripture? Scripture is that thing which will be most useful to my spiritual life. Like a ladder is most useful for climbing onto a roof, but thereafter it's no longer useful. Unfortunately, people take that scripture, we've covered it before, that the Vedas are as much use to a person who understands the truth as a flood is everywhere, as a tank of water where there's a flood everywhere. So this itself dismisses the importance of the Vedas and says the whole Vedas have they are only classified in the Mundaka Upanishad as aparavidya, not paravidya. Paravidya is seeing the truth directly for yourself. Everything else is second-hand knowledge. So it's only children, not the wise, who speak of knowledge and performance of action as different. Because this knowledge of and performance of action are all contained in scripture. If you misunderstand that, you misunderstand scripture. And it's childish to do so. Now, there are two things. Childlike and childish. Most of us suffer from being childish. You see how a person reacts. When things are smooth, the person you'll find is smoothly behaved. Then you'll find when somebody pokes him a little bit with a little insult, there's a huge reaction. Then at its peak, you'll see, my goodness, in English there's an expression, he threw his toys out of the cot. Means he behaved like a child. He slapped something down. got into a rage, stormed out of the house, something like that. All behaving as if you were 5 years old. But in an adult context, that's all. Social, not in a mature way. So that's childishness, the childish aspect. And the most mature aspect is childlike, seeing things in a simple way, with pure faith. There's a great difference. But there is also the children, not the wise, in contrast, who speak of knowledge and performance relation as different, they are the same. He who is truly established in one will obtain the fruits of both. You get the fruits of knowledge and you'll get the fruits of action. Both you'll get, because they culminate in the same thing. So, and then number 5 would tell us exactly that the truth would culminate in the same place. So we say, Yat sankhyayi prapyate sthanam tad yoge api gamyate. The stanza, the beat has changed. Ekam samkhyam cha yogam cha ya pashyati sa pashyati. That state reached by the jnanis is also reached by the karma yogis. He who sees, he sees who sees. Jnana and karma yoga is one, not separate. Only two different approaches. So of these two paths, which is more beneficial? A question can come. So the next one will tell us. Now, the truth is they culminate in the same place. We have to elucidate a little bit. So we can do it with a small diagram. We have to begin with understanding. It's not exactly jnana, but it's the first approach. You can't really put anything into practice until you understand it. That leads us to doing. That leads us then to being. That's the difference. So we start out with jnana. That leads us spontaneously to karma, which leads us to viyoga. Or I should say vijnana, actually. We transcend all action by doing that. But both are necessary. So you can't do something that makes sense, isn't it? You can't do something without understanding it. You tell somebody, please do this. The logical thing is, please tell me why. Why should I do it? Then I'll make a decision whether I should do it or not. That's a human free choice. Having the understanding of what's going on, you then go, the understanding will be scripture-based. Then understanding that, you then go and do it. Having done it, the two meet and it results in transcending all action. Vijnana. The realization, you may say. So that's the whole idea.
Can you just explain that once again? Sorry, I missed that. You
Which
said
one?
you understand and then do something.
Yeah.
And what do you mean by being? You understand why something is done and you do you do something. And how do you connect it to being?
We assume that being is knowing. So if we substitute that, we will understand it better if I say knowing. Knowing. Right. So we start off with saying, the jnana approach says, I am Brahman. The scripture tells me that. I work it out, I understand, yeah, that's true. On that basis, I'll move forward. Then, the karma yoga approach says, I become Brahman. To read that approach. But then at the end of it you say, I am Brahman. From a knowing point of view, not a theoretical point of view.
Okay, with the realization there.
Yeah. You get the idea? Yeah. So that's what it means. You can't start off by saying, very few people can start, that's why he says that this karma yoga approach is superior. Why? Because most people don't actually say, I am Brahman. It's counterintuitive to say it. So particularly in the area of religion, you say, now here's the truth about it. And I come across this all over the place. See, those people who are not familiar with Vedanta will get a shock. They say, no, I can't accept it. And even in the Jewish context, you'll find Jesus declared it. I and the Father are one, he declared. They couldn't accept it, they put him on a cross. So every good teacher knows that we'll appoint parts to the partless. We'll start off with a position that you can easily understand. God is a creator, we can start off with that. And then we'll go further. We say, is there some kind of connection between the creator and the creation? Me, the creature, and God, the creator. Is he like a father? Yeah, like that. I see. Make that connection. Now as that connection deepens, we see, I see, is this kind of father a punishing kind of father? No, he's a friendly father. Oh, God is a friend, right? In a deeper relationship. Then you go a little further and say, I see. I find that entity is not only within me, but is that same entity in all things. And I feel him in me. Yes, that's true. God is in you. Then the next thing I see, if God is in me, God must be in you and you and you and everything. Yes, that is also true. I see. Now, what's the next thing? I only see God. I don't see anything, any other thing. Non-duality. So you start off from a small lead-in. That's comprehensible and acceptable to the person. And expand on it, develop it, deepen it, and so on. Then we're going. So the state reached by the jnanis is also reached by the karma yogis. Who sees jnana, karma yoga as one, you don't have to see them as different. Maybe on to the 6th stanza then. Right. Sannyasas tu mahabhayu dukham aptam ayogataha yoga yukto muni brahma nachirena digachti. Renunciation, sannyasa, almighty armed, is hard to attain without karma yoga. The man of meditation purified by karma yoga quickly goes to Brahman. So, we'll talk a little bit about meditation. So here's a process. The process is, most people interested in meditation say, I want to learn to meditate. What this stanza is saying is, you have to do karma yoga first. You have to make a mental renunciation of actions, do actions from a point of view of non-detachment, and then purifying the mind through that. What will happen? You're going to go and meditate. But without that, you can't meditate. Another passage in the Upanishad tells us. First, you have to control the senses and the mind. Otherwise, you won't get peace. And where will you get peace from? Meditation. So if you want peace, you will meditate. If you want to meditate, please conduct your affairs in your normal waking life in such a way that you'll have an undercurrent of peace to start with. Otherwise, what will happen is meditation, formally, being only a fraction of your day, 0.1% or something like that, you sit down And what will happen? All the activities and concerns and difficulties will start crowding into the mind, uninvited. You'll be in the middle of mental traffic and difficulties and disturbances. Or you'll block it off. You sit there and say, right. All is peaceful, all is peaceful. Before you know it, you wake up. Oh, I slept. I sleep. So there's a certain system that was banded around in the Western countries from about the 1960s onwards, and still is very popular, purportedly teaching Oriental meditation, Indian meditation. So here's the system. You have to vacate all thoughts from your mind. That's the system. How will you do that? We'll give you a mantra. Now, on Tuesday I told you a mantra is protecting thought. But their understanding of mantra is, it's a sound that numbs all thought. It eliminates every thought. Why? Because you don't understand what it means. And what's the significance of the mantra then? Could I not repeat cabbage, rhubarb? Yeah, you can repeat it. It'll have the same effect. So when you now go and do a scientific research, what is the effect on the mind? When you repeat something repeatedly with a great deal of monotony, what will happen is a certain calm will take place. Yes, that's true. What do we call that calm? Sleep. What is the indication of it? Snoring. So that's not enlightenment. So they had a big advert in the 1960s. 6,000 people in Trafalgar Square meditated. I mean, 6,000 people dozed off nicely.
So they were repeating some word, is it? I mean, any word, they were repeating just...
Even the pigeons may have fallen asleep. I don't know. There was nobody to feed them. What?
They were repeating any word that they...
No, they're repeating a given mantra.
Okay.
So you pay a fee, and somebody says, okay, right, we give you a mantra. We were talking about initiation on Tuesday. So a kind of initiation takes place. You take it from an Oriental thing. The main guru founder, not being available to thousands of people, appoints teachers. We put you on a course, make you a teacher. And what will I do? Well, here's a table, a matrix. If you're this age, you give them this, you give that, you give them that. If they're male, you give them that. If female, you give them that. Right, fine, okay, off you go. And then tell them how, put them on a course, how to meditate. Of course you need to charge fees for it. All right. So what is the long and short of the course? Block off anything from the mind. Great misunderstanding, Patanjali Yoga Sutras. And the first sutra, the first few sutras defines yoga, and it tells us about Chitta Vritti Nirodha. You see, there's no thought wave that comes up in the mind. When no thought wave comes up in the mind, you've got deep peace. You've got the access to the truth. The truth will shine by itself. We're not distorted by all these different waves that come up in the mind. So how will we control that mind? How will we make it blank? No, you missed the point. You need to read further. Nobody reads any further. There are 3 types of waves. You know them. What are they? Sattva, Rajas and Tamas. It's only by raising up the sattvic thought that you will neutralize the other 2. The other 2 create pain for you. The sattva will not. It will create peace for you. So make the mind, fill the mind with shining things, good things. Only we must understand. You sit down and say, take any beautiful thought, channel it, canalize it toward a particular elevated subject, bring in all the various useful and helpful components with it, and make that a whole journey upwards and inwards. Until nearness becomes oneness, the object and subject merge. At that point, at that flash, you'll find there's a unity of experience, a consciousness being there only. That's a process. So the process is make your mind highly active. That's called meditation. Meditation, in fact, all these other things are diluted forms of meditation, such as puja and bhajan and so on and so forth, all of these, and karma yoga, doing social service and so on and so forth, all of these activities are a diluted form of meditation. That's all. But meditation formally is the highest. So do all your actions as a meditation. Do all your actions as a worship. That's the idea. And then, in the secrecy of your closet, as Jesus puts it, what will you do? You do the same process in a highly intensive way. But don't make the mind blank. So here it's told, what's the preparation for meditation? Preparation for meditation is action. You're like a film crew. Action. And everybody moves. Cut. Then everybody sleeps. Action. Everybody moves. Moving in your own role is called swadharma. Doing it correctly is doing it with great delight. But don't ask the question, when will I become? It doesn't make any sense. You can do it as a starting point. When will I become enlightened? When will I see God? That's only a starting point question. It's not a question from here. Question from here says, I know. Then when you say I know, then will you go and continue to act? Yes, what's the harm? An actor on the stage always knows that they're an actor. They don't know anything else. They don't ask, when will the Shakespearean actor Irving, when will I ever become, when will Hamlet ever become Irving? No, you're not Hamlet. Did you not know that? Before you put all the clothes on and rehearsed your lines, you went on the stage and the lights came and you said thee and thou and this and that, and then you went off. You didn't go home and say to your wife, oh thou wench, bring us my supper, mine supper, that I may repast on it. You wouldn't be suitable. Because I know who I am. See? So the question doesn't arise from a knowing position. But for a little bit of meditation. I think we can leave it there, probably. What's the time? We'll do one more maybe. So, the renunciation, just a comment, that is equilibrium, is hard to get without action. You can't get it. So, what does karma do? It purifies and leads to meditation. Why am I doing any action? To purify the mind. That's all. Why does it do it? Because it destroys I and mine. That's a key obstacle to meditation. Is that on a meditation is a very interesting subject. Most people are interested today. So you say, oh, I sat down, I couldn't meditate, I found it very difficult. Well, what were you trying to do? Oh, I was trying to think of God. As soon as you said trying, you stopped your meditation. There's no such thing as competitive meditation. You're not trying to achieve something. God's grace is flowing as thought. You don't have to get it, it's there. You catch it and steer it nicely. So, a good example is that just as well-performed work for the purification of the mind results in good meditation, it's the same thing. You work hard in the day, physically say. What is the reward of it? Deep, satisfied sleep. Same thing. What is the reward of karma yoga? Deep, concentrated meditation would be the result. I think we leave it off there. We'll pick it up at 7. So, stanza 7.